program Agric Economy on ARC and television, Mabushi, Abuja, Nigeria. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin. On today's episode of the program, we will be taking a look at the accessibility of funds by farmers in Nigeria, and to discuss that with me in the studio is Mr. Idakolo. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we've seen that most of the times farmers complain of their inability to access funds. They tell you that they've applied for this grant, they've done this loan, this and that, and it's not really working. What do you think? What's the gap? Because government tells you we have provided for farmers this, we have provided that grant, we have given them loans, yet you still see thousands of farmers complain.
The actual fact is that the funds available for farmers in Nigeria is not sufficient. So the very few that have been able to access loans are those that are into large-scale farming and that has used their political connections to be able to access these funds from the very few agencies that are saddled with that responsibility. So when you see smallholder farmers and semi-large scale farmers, they find it difficult because of the requirements to accessing these loans. Some of the requirements makes it very difficult for them to be able to access the loan on one hand from agencies that are saddled with the responsibility, like the National Agricultural Bank and other agencies. So they tend to now look for short-term opportunities with commercial banks, which will also want to request collateral and other measures from them. So it makes it difficult for them to be able to access these funds. And also note that any fund that is given for agribusiness for farmers has to be a single-digit interest rate. But most of the ones in the system, apart from the ones that are championed by the federal government through the CBN and NARCB, they are the only ones that can come in with a single-digit interest rate, which actually is what the farmer can be able to cope with and be able to be profitable on the long run. So the commercial banks cannot, the structuring, the fund structuring cannot be comfortable or cannot match what the farmers' needs will be when we talk of accessibility to loans, because the commercial banks tend to give short-term loans and at double-digit interest rates, which the farmers cannot cope with. So the farmers need long-term loans, long-term funds that are single-digit so that they can be able to pay as at when due. So the major problem presently is that we do not have enough intervention funds to be able to reach all the farmers, to be able to actually move ahead. So it's giving them a lot of problem presently because of the accessibility and the numbers of farmers that actually requires these loans.
Okay, now the problem is, I want to be on the part of government here.
Yeah.
It's not like these monies are not earmarked.
Yes.
It's just that there's no accessibility.
Yes.
So what's hindering? What's the issue?
Now, there are two issues that the government is looking at, and which also has to do with the farmers. I said earlier that some farms or farmers or corporate farmers have been able to access loans from the CBN, while some could not. We discovered over time, about a year ago, that the CBN, through the anchor borrower plan, was complaining that even the funds that have been given out to these farmers are not being repaid. And when they are not repaid, it means that it's not going to allow others to be able to access those facilities. The second aspect of it, which has to do with the farmers, is the fidelity on the part of the farmers. Some of the farmers see interventions by government as a national cake that they are supposed to get their own share. So some of them do not structure their business to the extent of having an idea or having a plan to repay the loan. So what they just do, they put all the measures in place to ensure that they access the funds without the intention of repayment. So that is why even the funds that are available by government is not being able to disburse to others, because the ones that have accessed it have not been able to follow the repayment plan. So it's hindering others from accessing it.
Okay, I know very well that if even on these sub loans you get on your phone, banks, commercial banks gives you, they'll tell you access this. By the time you check the criteria you have to meet up, is there no way that these people, channels
Yes.
used to give these people these loans, these
Yes.
facilities. Is there no way they can trace them? Is there no way? Because you cannot say, you cannot pay Peter, you cannot rob Peter to pay Paul. And then, because Mr. A collected this facility and didn't pay, means that Mr. B will also collect and then run away.
Now, let's put it in perspective. There are two issues that happened last year and the year before that actually could buttress the fact or give backing to the fact that some of these farmers do not have the capacity to pay back. We know we have high insecurity in the land. The farmer herders crisis that made herders to go into farms, destroy farm implements, destroy crops and the rest. The second aspect is climate change, flooding and the rest that has actually affected some of these farmers. Be that as it may, some farmers that were not even affected or that were partially affected use it as a means not to make repayment for these loans. So when loans are being given to farmers, natural disasters are to be put into consideration, and also insecurity is part of it. Now, the last aspect I want us to look at, which is agric insurance, is because agric insurance has not been properly enforced in Nigeria to the extent that it will cover farmers' losses when natural disasters occur or the act of insecurity that leads to loss of livelihood occurs. So the government should tie the loans that are being given to these farmers vis-a-vis the agric insurance to be able to ensure that at the end of the day, if there is an inability on the part of the farmers to pay, the agric insurance will be able to indemnify the bank, the central bank, for example. So that angle, the government needs to tidy it up. And when we are talking about agric insurance, you will discover that Nigeria only has one flagship agric insurance company in Nigeria. So which is a Nigeria agric insurance company, NAIC. You understand? And you know that when we talk about insurance in life and commercial, you discover that we have several insurance companies. So Nigerian government also need to encourage investment in the area of agric insurance, as it is being done in other climes, to ensure that they will hold the back of the farmers, to ensure that when losses arise, they will be able to indemnify the bank on the long run. The absence of a very strong agric insurance sector is affecting the farmers when we talk about accessibility to facilities.
Okay, I think I've been to communities like I've been to Econ,
okay,
in Cross River State. Likewise, in my course of being an agri journalist, and I've been to Benue State too. Like I told you in our previous episode, where I said I saw so many fruits being damaged and the rest of it. You see farmers, they'll tell you, this lawmaker came and gave me, we went for some outreach where lawmakers did their constituency projects and all of that. And then you keep wondering, today you are being called to come and cover where the lawmaker gives, tools and then stipends to, support the business. And then just wait for another 2-3 hours, just within where you are discussing. The farmer tells you he has no money.
Yeah.
So, what do you think farmers should do? Because I want to believe that farmers are not spending according to their earning.
Okay. When we talk about political intervention to farmers, maybe for constituency project's sake, you discover that the politicians over time have not been entirely honest when it comes to their intervention in their constituencies. You will be surprised that some of the farm implements were just brought for show, and after the inauguration and the rest, they are returned back, and the farmer is given a stipend at the end of the day and congratulated for allowing them to be used for such a show. So when you look at that, we cannot really say that political intervention from members of the House of Assembly or the Senate or even the state houses of assembly would really help the farmers. What we need are fundamental interventions that can stand the test of time. And these are the ones that is being advocated by Nigerians, economists, and also by farmers itself. And that starts initially from the local government. The local government, which is the lowest run of government in Nigeria, should have cognate interest in the agricultural business in their locality. And they have to start by ensuring that they equip their farmers first. They ensure that they know their farmers' needs before they pass it to the state government, which will, based on the request from the local government on their farmers' needs, intervene in that sector. And when federal government wants to come in, the state government will be the first port of call by the federal government to actually assess the needs of these farmers. So the local government has failed in this duty to ensure that they actually know the needs of their farmers and intervene in any aspect of it. I also want to believe in other climes that local government structures are meant to deal with local problems, and part of the job of the local government is provision of basic farm tools for their farming, for the farming community in that area. Tractors, the hoes, the harvesters, and the rest. Even if the fertilizers, even if some of these farm tools are going to be on higher purposes, so that the farmers will use it and return back. So the local government needs to intervene, needs to be seen to have done their part before they invite the state and the federal government, which is lacking presently. So the local government needs to wake up to actually assist the farmers, because they are the first port of call by farmers and table their needs.
Okay, aside looking at the federal government, when we say these things, we say government needs to do this, government needs to do that. The truth is, yes, government is listening, but like I said, some of these interventions may come slow.
Yeah.
Not as fast as the farmer may want, not as fast as even we, the consumers, would want. Looking at the scarcity that becomes the end product of these all discussions. So what do you think on the part of I know they used to have farmer association of and then looking at investors coming in also. What do you think can be?
Yes, the farmers, which I feel that they have been doing, but they need to strengthen it. First, the farmers need to do what we call assessment check. They need to assess themselves vis-a-vis their need, vis-a-vis their capacity, and what they can turn out to the community and to the nation as a whole. The second aspect, which the farmers, I believe some are doing while some are not doing, is to form cooperatives. When the farmers form cooperatives and pool resources together, then members of the cooperative can now have an opportunity to take from those funds to be able to meet specific needs that will help them to grow. So when farmers form cooperatives, apart from being an association, they have a voice and they also have the funds to be able to help themselves on the low scale. So when the farmers have done that, they can now present their case to investors that might want to come in as a group to be able to look at the situation, look at the potentials, look at the profits that can come out from such investment. You can imagine when you have a state like maybe Plateau, for example, and Plateau is known to have Irish potato production, and the farmers form cooperatives and have strength to be able to produce, and they can safely, as a cooperative, say we as a cooperative in our own area, we can produce 1,000 bags of this Irish potato in a week for you. So they have a strong voice to be able to talk to investors that will either come to buy off those products from them, or that will invest in them, so that when those products come up, they can now be off-takers to be able to take it. So the farmers need to help themselves to ensure that they have a strong cooperative that they will pool resources together first to be able to access some funds to equip themselves, build their farms to be able to meet production and speak with one voice to be able to attract investment into their various areas.
Okay, and I think there is also complaints by some quarters. Some people feel that we have too many, I would say, associations, and some you hear this one is not genuine. They're not tomato farmers. They are just they just plant tomato at home. But then if the time for them to come out for this to access these facilities, everybody comes out and all of that. So how do you think they can in the area of knowing each other, knowing who is the genuine farmer. Genuine in the sense that it doesn't mean he's not a farmer.
Okay.
I can have my own space in my backyard and then I'll farm for my consumption.
Yeah.
But when it comes to industrial farming, or let me say large scale farming now, when they say everybody come, oh yeah, I want to share money, and then I'll come like, yes, I have a space behind my house.
I'm a farmer as well.
I'm a farmer as well. So how do they separate this so that this does not?
Actually, the work really lies on the farmers association, the genuine ones, because when you form an association, you form it for sole purposes of interaction, of soliciting help, and to support each other. So when there are farmers association, just like I said earlier, that has formed cooperative, they know themselves. What I'm trying to say is that when we have situations whereby we don't know who is a genuine farmer or not, it can be ascertained through the farmers association as well, because they know themselves. They know that the needs of individual farmers is to have opportunity to access funds, to be able to sell his products, to be able to have a strong voice, collective strong voice together. So that is what the association does. But one thing that we also need to know is that because of the Nigerian factor, there are some certain individuals that have connection to the high and mighty that might also have information of what is coming to a particular state or locality, and might want to use it for their own personal selfish interest or selfish benefit. So those ones also come up. So when such situations come up that maybe the federal government is intervening or an organization wants to intervene, and they have those informations, they might want to bypass the actual farmers association and form their own with the opportunity to be able to ensure that they get it. What the federal government needs to do is to do a critical assessment of the sector. It is not difficult. We have local government, we have state government. We also have federal agric extension and research staff that can do this for us. If the government is sincere or an organization wants to intervene in a particular sector, they can do their research on their own to actually know who the farmers are, and not paper farmers that just registered for the purpose of fleecing the government or the organizations. So on the part of government, there should be genuine due diligence to ensure that we are actually dealing with the right people and not just people that are registered to take funds.
What Nigerians benefit, so to say, if farmers are able to get funding for the farm business?
Definitely, there are several benefits that accrue to the Nigerian state. First and foremost, if farmers are able to have access to funding, it means that they will be able to cultivate their crops, and they will be able to harvest their crops, and they will be able to send it to the market. And when that happens, Nigeria would, one way or the other, attain self-sufficiency in food security. The second, we will have products at considerably low prices, because there will be no scarcity, because the farmers are producing in maximum capacity. Also, the government will have happy citizens that are able to feed. They said an angry man is an hungry man. An hungry man is an angry man. So when people are well fed, the anger in the land will reduce. We have seen situations a year or 2 years ago where people go as far as stealing food items that are still being cooked. It's because of the level of poverty. So for a country, when we have a very vibrant agri sector, it reduces poverty to the barest minimum. Because there is a saying in my place that when food is removed from poverty, the poverty reduces. So government has a lot of benefits.
That is still the program Agric Economy on ARCN Television, Mabushi, Abuja, Nigeria. We'll take a quick break and the program continues. Okay, so we talked about so many things as regards the funding for farmers rather in Nigeria. Now we know that the menace is there, the possible solutions you've stated and all. But what before these solutions come to be, what's your advice? What do you think, farmer? How do you think they can go, even with the little resources that they have?
Yeah. The Nigerian farmers, as it is, should be very positive because one thing that has to do when we are talking of localization of industries, for example, is that you talk about raw materials, you also talk about the buying power of the people. A Nigerian farmer has the populace, the population to be able to buy his products. All he needs to do is to be able to ensure that that product gets to the population. So the Nigerian farmer should be confident enough to know that if they are able to make and cultivate their produce and send it to the market, there is adequate market for any of Nigerian farming crops in the country because the population that can consume it is available, and also there is also opportunities for the farmers for export. So when farmers come together, just like I said earlier, they should also look at areas of diversification. We have seen situations before in the past where farmers come together to form a bank. Even in Nigeria, is a bank that has now metamorphosed to what we call Wema Bank today. It is farmers that come together to form it. So why did they come together? Is this same problem that we are talking about: access to funding, adequate representation, opportunities that can be taken up if they have the charge. So the farmers should ensure that they are consistent with what they are doing, ensure that they form associations that will be strong enough to have a strong voice, to be able to project their demands, and to be able to use that opportunity to also look for investors themselves without directly or 100% relying on government to come and do everything for them. So those are the things that the farmers should also look at. The other aspect of it, which the farmers also must not shy away from, is research. In as much as the federal government and state government are spending on research, and we have research institutes for various products, for various crops, the farmers themselves should be able to spend resources on research, both locally and internationally, to ensure that some of the products that they have is improved upon, so that there can be improved yield. For example, if you have if you are a Irish potato farmer, for example, and based on current research, you are able to produce 10 tons of the Irish potato per hectare of land. But when there is improved research and that can come into play, it increases the production to the extent that you can harvest 15-20 tons per hectare. Those are the areas that the farmers should also look at to maximize profit and to increase output. So it's very important that the Nigerian farmers should not be solely reliant on what the government can do for them, but to also be the ones that will generate ideas to better the lot of their practice.
I want to agree with you on that part of farmers knowing their crop, because there are times that I have a friend, she's a lady, she's a farmer, she's in Cross River. She farms cassava.
Okay.
She can tell you the different species. She'll tell you the one that is good to make gari. She'll tell you the one that is good to, and even among those that they make gari from. In fact, I was very impressed when she started lecturing me over in their own place. They have every area has this localized name they call this species, and then she was like, "No, it's secretary that I'm going to do for you, madam. You see this secretary, if you drink it or you use it to make about." And I was now like, how come? She said, "Well, I've been farming since I was 8.
Yes.
She started with the parents. She's a coach.
Okay.
But then she said she did every other thing, and she just felt this farming is what she should just take up and all of that. So I want to really, that knowing your crop would help you so that you don't even run loss.
Yes.
I think I'll take your idea at that. Thank you very much for coming on the program this week again. Thank you. We really do appreciate it's been an educating one with you. That's how we wrap it up on the program for this week on Agric Economy on ARCN Television, Mabushi, Abuja, Nigeria. I remain yours, Khadija Oluwatoyin. Bye.